Welcome into Breaking the Huddle. I'm Joel Klatt. The show, as always, is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It is the official drink of Fansville. We are reacting to the college football playoff, those semifinals. What a weekend of college football it was. Alabama takes care of Notre Dame. Ohio State really thumps Clemson in a bit of a shocking outcome, at least in the dominant fashion that they took care of them. First, Alabama, Notre Dame. Folks, this is the outcome that we all expected. Nothing against Notre Dame. I think that they had a remarkable season. I think that I defend Brian Kelly when he talks about this narrative of them not being any good. They've done a remarkable job. Brian Kelly has done a great job. Alabama is just better. They have better players. They're more explosive, and they went out there and won the football game. This team is really good, folks. There's not a lot of weaknesses. I think great offenses like maybe Ohio State can get to them and score some points. But what a performance it was from Alabama. Devontae Smith, who I believe is one of, if not the best player in college football. So we'll see how that all shakes out. I was so impressed with what Alabama was able to do. And now they're moving on to the championship game as expected. But the team that they are playing, many thought was going to be Clemson. But no, the Ohio State Buckeyes roll in, and they were fabulous. So let's go down to Florida and bring in our cohort there in Big Noon Kickoff, Urban Meyer, the coach. Coach, let's talk about those Buckeyes and what a dominant performance it was. The Buckeyes dominated in every facet of the game. And I think, at least from my standpoint, it started up front, both offensively and defensively. They owned the line of scrimmage.
Joel, and I think we share this philosophy that long before Joel Klatt and Urban Meyer and long after us, the game of football was won at the line of scrimmage. And you as a former quarterback, you want to win the game, control the ball, control the line of scrimmage. That makes your job so much easier as a quarterback, because defensive linemen, if they don't have to defend the run, they pin them back and they come after you. And so it all started, and I've never really sat that high before. I was in the Superdome with Big Ten Network, and I was looking down, and after 5 plays, I think I put it on a Big Noon Kickoff text. I said, boys, this one's over.
Yeah. Because
the line of scrimmage was getting displaced. I mean, when I say knocked back, and Clemson tried to overcome. Brett Venables is obviously an excellent coach. They're that's not the same D line that they had when Wilkins and those other first-round draft picks. They're good players, but not like that. And Ohio, they tried to move them, and once you get a big man moving, they can't stop. And so, they either displaced them when they moved into them, or when they moved away, they couldn't stop, and they were running the rail. And so. Yeah, it started up front.
So I want to get your thoughts on the game plan and Justin Fields, because the game plan, you could tell that Ryan Day was concerned about the sign stealing because they huddled. Ohio State doesn't generally huddle. You and I know that. They'll huddle here and there, maybe before a 3rd and 1 and rush up to the line of scrimmage. But they were huddling quite a bit and using that fast tempo out of the huddle. And Clemson was unable to get lined up. Several times we saw them trying to get lined up, and then a big run would happen. In fact, Trey Sermon scored a touchdown on one of those plays. So that's the first part of the game plan. And then the second part, Justin Fields played maybe his best game as a football player, period, in his life. I wonder what your thoughts are on both of those.
Yeah, one of the strengths of Clemson's defense coordinator is, I don't even like to use the word stealing signals because it's perfectly legal.
Sure.
He doesn't steal anything. If you give it to him, he's going to take it. And so I think he does a great job. Ryan off-centered that with, they had wristband calls, which I haven't used. We've used it a few times, and he's used it a few times. But they also, Brent Venables sees where the tight end is, sees where the tailback is, and they call the defense. And so Ryan kept them in the huddle, and I was with Jerry DiNardo, and I kept looking at the play clock. They were snapping the ball between 6 and 9 seconds every time. And that's very unusual for a spread offense that plays with tempo. Usually it's about the 20, 24 range. They held on to it. They just let the players get their breath. And then Clemson, as you saw a few times, they hustle the line, snap the ball, and they're still waiting for the call. So obviously a little gamesmanship by Ryan Day, and it worked.
And then Justin Fields, his performance, because, I was a bit nervous for him. That hit looked pretty bad. He could not move in the next few series, but you talk about the heart of a champion, man. He came out there and played a whale of a game and threw the deep ball maybe better than he has in his entire life.
Yeah, obviously Corey Dennis, I know him very well, son-in-law, but I talked to him and he made the comment to Ryan Day that I'm not coming out of this game and we are going to win. You know, his value, I am so impressed by that guy. I mean, Joel, they're playing football because of him.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not playing because of commissioners and ADs, and they're playing because of Justin Fields and his family. Think about what I just said. The Big Ten had a season not because they shut it down. We've kind of forget all that. And here's a young man that did it respectfully. His parents, the families of Ohio State, and obviously a coach, they said they were told to stand down, and they said, we're not going to stand down. Yeah, but the best thing is they did it respectfully. So he is a warrior. He's a leader. And obviously God gifted him with great talent.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Last thing before we let you go, in this matchup now looking forward as Alabama and Ohio State are going to play for a national championship. First of all, that has to bring back unbelievable memories for you, playing in that game 3 times and winning that 3 times, twice with Florida, once with Ohio State. And then the matchup with Alabama. This seems like a great matchup on both sides. Alabama's got some pluses. Obviously, Ohio State's got some major pluses. What are your thoughts on this game?
Alabama's very clean on defense. I've watched a bunch of them, and I know them very well. They win the game because of fundamentals, great players, and great technique and working your tendencies.
Yeah.
Clemson was more of a, we're going to disrupt you, be all over the place, create a bunch of different looks for you. Alabama's going to line up and play. They disguise a little bit, but not a lot. So it's going to be a much different game. I think Ohio State's going to score some points. I saw Florida do it. I saw Ole Miss do it. And I think Ohio State's better than those 2 teams offensively. Now, you're talking about Alabama's offense. I haven't seen anyone even come close to slowing that down. I mean, you have three. You can call it what it is. You have 3 Heisman, I think, winners. They in their own time, they could have won the Heisman. Obviously you can't win them all this year, but so this will be a high-scoring game.
For me, the bottom line is going to come down to that defensive line for Ohio State. They're going to have to play an unbelievable game in order to try to slow down and disrupt the timing of that passing game. Because if you just let Mac Jones sit back there and throw the football, those wide receivers are too talented. They're too fast. They exploit space too quickly. And so the deal for Ohio State is in particular, those defensive tackles. And that they're great players up front, Tommy Togiai and Haskell Garrett. They're going to need to press the middle of that pocket right back into Mac Jones' lap and make him more uncomfortable than he's been all year long if Ohio State wants to slow him down a little bit on the defensive side.
Yeah, and Alabama's interior offense line is much better than Clemson. Clemson, that was a weakness, and it showed up. Trevor Lawrence still threw for 400 yards, but he was pressured all night. They couldn't get Etienne going because they just couldn't control him. But you're right. That's where it all starts, and it's going to come down to this. And I think me and you've talked about this before. Whenever in a game or getting ready to play a team that, you had a hard time, whether it be a wishbone, whether it be a team that's a really good offense, it comes down to 4 or 5 stops.
Yeah.
And like I go back to Florida. Florida could have won that game. They had 3 stops, but 2 15-yard penalties kept the drive going. And then one, they intercepted the ball, and then they fumbled it right back to Alabama. So those are 3 stops that who knows? They lost by, I think, 6 points or whatever it was. So it's going to come down to, I used to keep it right on my little score sheet, on my little folder I used to carry with me. And I'd use it for motivation for myself and my team. So there's 1 stop. Now let's get 1 more. Yeah. Let's get 1 more. And I imagine Alabama's saying the same thing.
Sure.
It's going to be 4 to 5 stops, Joel.
Well, it's going to be a whale of a game. I can't wait for it. And these 2 teams have separated themselves. They're in a class of their own right now in college football, and I can't wait for it. Coach, thank you for joining us, man. I know it's been a busy week, so we'll let you get back to it.
See you, Joel. Thanks.
Pleased to be joined now by really the man of the hour in Buckeye Nation. That is Trey Sermon, the bell cow now for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Man, you are churning up some yards, man. First against Northwestern, then against Clemson. First of all, how you feeling right now?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I've been a little sore, but I mean, I've just been working hard with the strength staff just to get my body right, and I mean, I feel great.
What happened, man, against Northwestern? Like it just seemed like all year I had seen you at Oklahoma, right? And I was waiting for you to break out, and then boom, it happens. You set the record for a single game in Ohio State history, passing Eddie George. You had 331 yards. What changed? Like what broke open for you?
Really, I just got really comfortable and in sync with the offensive line. I mean, I felt like each week I was getting better and better and just more and more comfortable. And by that time, I mean, I was just able to, really just do my job at a high level. I mean, running behind the offensive line, they kind of made it easy for me. But, with them moving bodies and me just being in the right place, it just worked out.
And then that continued against Clemson. Your offensive line was great, man. I mean, in both games, right? As you alluded to, they were moving people off the ball. You were finding the lanes. That timing, that flow that you guys, what did that feel like against Clemson?
It felt great. I mean, like you said, they were able to move bodies and create those lanes. And me just getting more and more comfortable and just really being in sync, I was able to find it and be in the right place at the right time. And that's what kind of led to the success.
A lot of people drawing comparisons to the last 3 games that Zeke Elliott had en route to a national championship. I'm sure you've heard the comparisons of what you're doing now in your last 2. Now you face Alabama. Just give me a sense of how excited you guys are to get into this ball game, number 1, and what you think you can do against this defense.
We're very excited. We've been through a lot of adversity. And we've been through a lot as a group, as a program. So just to make it to the final game, it's been our goal, and it means a lot to us. And this matchup it's going to be good, and I feel like we execute, and I just continue to do my job at a high level. I'll be successful. I don't have to do nothing out of the ordinary. Just trust my coaching and trust my ability, and I'll be fine.
Well, Trey, you've been fantastic, man. Very fun to watch. Congratulations so far. Best of luck on Monday night against the Crimson Tide. Thanks for joining us, bud.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
As most of you know, before this year, I had been a proponent of keeping the playoff at 4 or minimizing the playoff, trying to retain the normalcy of college football and the importance of the regular season. But it's been pretty clear to me this year that we do need to expand, mainly for 2 reasons. The first being, although not the best reason, but the first being that we need more revenue in college football to distribute across to these programs because of the revenue that was lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that's going to be important. There is a money tree in college football. That money tree is an expanded playoff. We can distribute more money and retain some of those ancillary programs that are not college football and help for funding for those scholarship opportunities. The second reason I think that we need to expand college football is that we have consolidated all the meaning and importance and the success in the sport up to the very, very top. And because of that, you're seeing so many more players opt out. You're seeing teams opt out of bowl games. And I think that we need to allow more teams around the country the opportunity to define success for themselves, because right now, nothing defines success outside of the playoffs. So what you see is the same teams perpetually every single year go to the playoff because they're the only ones that can go into a recruit's home and say, hey, you can come here and go to the playoff and win a playoff game. In fact, the 6 teams in the country that have won playoff games in the history of the playoff went 1 through 6 in the 2021 recruiting rankings. So we're going to get this perpetual cycle. We need to expand that. We need to expand the meaning, the success, and the definition of success to larger amounts of teams throughout college football. So because of that reason, I have come up with now some criteria and then a couple of different options for expansion. First and foremost, here's some changes to rules that I think that we're going to need in college football in order to make it better. Number 1, we need to remove divisions within conferences, put the top 2 teams in each conference in the conference championship game. I think that's an important one. I think every conference should play a minimum of 9 conference games. I think you saw the benefit of that in the SEC this year when they played 10 games. I think that every single team in the country that's a Power 5 team should not only play 9 conference games, they should play 1 Power 5 non-conference game. So a minimum of 10 Power 5 matchups during the course of the season. I'm going to, in every one of these scenarios, give automatic bids to every single Power 5 champion, conference champ, and the best Group of 5 champion. That is an automatic bid for that Group of 5 team into the playoff. Now, as far as independents go, Notre Dame All they have to do is be in the top rankings, and you'll see that in a moment, and have a maximum of 2 losses. If you are a team that does not play 10 Power 5 opponents like BYU, you would have to be the top-ranked Group of 5 team in the country to be included. So in this iteration that I'm going to go show you, they would actually not be involved in this playoff. And then the fifth thing is I think we need to remove the current committee structure and go back to a more BCS model of ranking teams. So for the sake of this argument and these models, I'm actually going to use BCS-style rankings for these 3 models. There's going to be 3 ways I'm going to do this, folks. Here's a 16-team, a 14-team, and a 10-team playoff model. I think any of these have pluses and minuses. Let's start with 16. This is what a 16-team playoff would have looked like this year in my model. You've got 1 Alabama. These, by the way, the first round is hosted on campus. So Alabama, you've got Texas A&M, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oregon, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Cincinnati would all host games. And it's important to note that in my seeding, the 6 champions, the 5 Power 5, and the 1 Group of 5 get the top 6 seeds. So they would be hosting a game. That's one of the benefits of winning the conference championship game. So you're retaining some meaning within that conference championship game, and then you play it out from there. I think that the second round would stay on campus, and then as you go into that semifinal round, you can go back to the bowl sites as you currently do, and then a national championship game that floats around similar to the Super Bowl. So that's a 16-team playoff. Let's look at some other models, though, and I was trying to figure out a way. How do we reward teams that really play great, the best teams in the country? Well, here's a 14-team playoff model. We're getting 14 teams in the NFL right now. This is the same type of a model where the first 2 teams, the top 2 teams in the country, get a bye into the second round. You're still seeding them exactly as I did in the prior rounds, where the conference championships get the champions, get the top 6 seeds. And then obviously you've got a few at-large teams that are there getting in, again, based on BCS style of rankings. The first round and the second round are played on campus at the higher seed. And then we're going to those bowl sites and then a national championship game that floats around just like the Super Bowl. So that's what it would look like in a 14-team model this season. And then here's an interesting one that you could expand off an 18-team playoff. I don't think that we should just do 8 teams, because after you get the automatic berths, there are just not enough at-large spots. So to me, this is how you would do an 8-team playoff. I would call it a 10. It would be a play-in. So you've got your 6 conference champions, the 5 Power 5s, and the best Group of 5. And then you have the 4 at-large teams that are left, the 4 best teams left, play in order to play the top 2 seeds. So that would be my 10-team playoff model. Again, I'm not a fan of 8, because I think we would still be consolidating the meaning and the progress and the substance of what it means to be a quality program too far at the top of college football. I think we need a minimum of 10. I think 14 is actually a really good model, because you're rewarding the top 2 teams in the country. They get a bye. You're rewarding conference champions, and you're retaining some of the meaning of those conference championship games. Obviously, there would be a ton to vet through, and we can't do it all on this program. But there are my 3 models of what you could do moving forward for expansion, which is much needed in college football: a 16, a 14, and a 10-team model. I would love your thoughts. Tell me what you think of those models, what you think is wrong with them, and what you think is right with them. And we can maybe influence a little change in college football moving forward. All right, time for a little Klatt back, our favorite segment. Let's get out to it. What happened on social this week? Brian Scott says, you did pick Clemson, right? Because Lawrence is the better QB, right? Asking for a friend, LOL. I did pick Clemson, and it wasn't just because of Trevor Lawrence. Actually, Brian, I did pick Clemson in the game because we hadn't seen that version of Ohio State yet, to their own admission. We hadn't seen that dominance in terms of the pass rush of their defensive line. We hadn't seen the ability of their secondary to limit the explosive plays. We hadn't seen even their offense play with that amount of efficiency, both in the run game and in the passing game. Remember, when we saw the run game explode against Northwestern, it's partly because the pass game was inept that day. So, yes, Brian, I did pick Clemson. I was wrong. Ohio State played their most complete and best game, and they won, and they're moving on to play for the national championship. So thank you very much, Brian. Now move along. Listen, folks, this is going to be a fantastic game. I can't wait for this ball game. Clearly, the 2 best teams in the country, Ohio State and Alabama, and I think Ohio State is starting to play their best football right now, which is scary for Tide fans. If you would have told me before the semifinal games, hey, you're going to get an Alabama-Ohio State matchup, I would have said, yeah, I would take Alabama in that game. But man, the way that semifinal happened and went for Ohio State, and the way that Justin Fields played, and the way that they ran the ball, and the way that their defensive and offensive lines played, it's really difficult for me not to pick Ohio State. But I learned a long time ago that when you have a feeling kind of the entire year about a team, you stick with it. And I'm going to try not to let my emotions get the best of me. And while I think it's going to be a ridiculously close game, I'm going to go with Alabama only because I've been watching this team all year long, and I thought that they were the best team for the course of the year. Won't surprise me at all if Ohio State wins. Like I said, I think it's going to be a fabulous game. It's going to be high scoring. So look for Justin Fields and Mac Jones and Devontae Smith and Najee Harris and Trey Sermon to put on a show, Chris Olave to put on a show, and all of us are going to be the beneficiary of that, because college football has got a great national championship game, and I can't wait for it. You can watch it with me on all of our digital platforms here at College Football on Fox. I will be watching live. Come on and join me on Monday night for a national championship watch party. We'll have all sorts of guests. It's going to be a great time. Thank you for watching the show. This show, as always, is brought to you by Dr. Pepper. It is the official drink of Fansville. Have a great week, everybody.